Have you ever noticed that two people can both say, they're my friend, and mean completely different things? I think this one misunderstanding has quietly damaged more friendships than we realise. Because one person thinks they're talking about a close friend, the other thinks they're talking about someone they occasionally have coffee with. One person is expecting loyalty, emotional support, and regular contact. The other is simply happy to catch up every few months. They're using the same word, but speaking completely different friendship languages. And until we understand that, we can end up feeling disappointed, rejected, or deeply hurt without either person ever intending it. Sometimes we look back and realize that what we thought was a deep friendship may have been something different. Sometimes we were so grateful to have someone there, so desperate for connection, or so invested in the idea of the friendship that we didn't notice the signs. I've been in this situation before, and I'm sure many of you have too. We focused on the moments that felt good and explained away the moments that didn't. You know those gut feelings you choose to ignore because you want something so much? Maybe you're really lonely. I remember twice when I was aged in my 20s wanting to get to know and develop a real friendship with two women. One was a neighbour and a member of the same young adults group I was in. The other was a workmate who I gave lifts to. I was reading a book about testing friendships, so to see whether my doubts about both friendships were true, I shared with each woman what I was feeling about our relationships being a bit one-sided. It turned out that my expectations were too high for the sort of connection both women wanted. I was seeing things I did as building into the friendship and hoping they would reciprocate, but they didn't, and they didn't want to take our friendship to another. Sometimes we don't see clearly because we are looking at a friendship through the lens of what we hope it will become rather than what it actually is. Finding out the truth can be very hard, but it helps you put boundaries out and learn to accept different levels of friendship for what they are. The truth is, friendship doesn't come with one universal definition. We all speak different friendship languages. We have different expectations, different ways of showing care, and different ideas about what closeness actually looks like, and different types of people we want to be close to or have time to be close to. Some people feel loved through long conversations, others through practical help. Some value loyalty above everything. Others value fun, honesty, encouragement, or simply spending time together. Understanding those differences can change the way we see our friendships and maybe stop us expecting one person to meet every emotional need we have. I've also come to think we put too much pressure on one or two people to meet every need we have. Maybe one friend is the person you laugh with, another is the one who gives you wise advice. Someone else shares your hobbies, another quietly turns up when life gets hard. That's not necessarily a weak friendship network. It may actually be a healthy one. If everyone's definition is different, what actually makes someone a true friend? I think there is a common thread, and understanding it can completely change the way we build and appreciate the friendships we already have. I don't think it's necessarily how often you see them, but for some people, the quality time people, that matters. And friendships do need to be nourished, otherwise they die. So to me, spending time together is important. I'm quality time though. We may just need to adjust our expectations of how often we get together as life unfolds. People get married, they have children, they become carers for aging parents, house changes, jobs become demanding, some move overseas, others simply have different personalities and social batteries. A true friendship doesn't have to be perfect, but there does need to be something mutual. There needs to be some level of care, respect, interest, and willingness to meet each other somewhere in the middle. But sometimes people change. The person who once fitted beautifully into your life may no longer be walking the same path. Your values may shift, your priorities may change, the things that connected you may no longer be enough to hold the friendship together. And that can be painful because it means letting go of not only a person but also the vision of the future you imagined with them. And this too has happened to me. Firstly with long-time school friends and a good friend I made in my 20s when we had young children. This last friend moved further out of town and we drifted apart. One day we met up at a place I worked and where I had the chance to chat due to the nature of the job I was in. We were both very pleased to reconnect, and I mentioned making time to more regularly keep in contact. However, she said that she didn't think she had the time. So we left it at that, and I accepted that, feeling a little sad, but accepting her situation. Years later, I saw an article about one of her children in a local newspaper and decided to make contact and tell her I'd seen news of her daughter and was following her on YouTube. She was pleased to hear from me and said she'd really like to catch up, which we did. It turned out she had recently gone through something I was currently going through, and she was able to support me through that, which was great. We've caught up a few times since, at least one at her initiation, and I'm sure we will in the future. And the long-time school friends, their lives and mine went in different directions, and we didn't really have that much in common anymore. Letting go doesn't mean friendships were failures. Some people are meant to walk beside us for a season, for just a chapter. Some for many years or the whole book. Some leave us with memories and lessons that remain long after the relationship itself changes. Perhaps maturity in friendship is learning to appreciate what was real, recognise what wasn't, and make space for the relationships that genuinely nourish both people. Understanding those differences can change the way we see our friendships and maybe stop us expecting one person to meet every emotional need we have. And sometimes they may make decisions that change the whole dynamics of your friendship. For example, you may have been friends with a couple as a couple, and then they separate and partner up with someone you don't think will be good for them. I was actually in this situation too once, and because I was very close to this friend at this time, I warned her like a good friend does. She was quite offended actually and chose to ignore it, and our friendship ended. Not every friendship survives. Some friendships become unhealthy, some become one-sided, some naturally come to an end. And a counsellor friend once talked in a lecture I attended about the friendship cycle. And that is, as friendships grow, they eventually meet a turning point or crisis point. If you can get through this together and still be friends, the friendship grows. Otherwise, it often dies or stays the same. I think about that often, and I've seen that work in real life. And as I mentioned in last week's video about layers of community, sometimes we simply misunderstand people or don't seek clarification when we should. And then there's a friend I had, I thought I'd offended her, but later when I did catch up with her, she'd just been busy and stressed, and we'd recently reconnected. Friends can bring different things. One friend might be the person who makes you laugh until your stomach hurts. Another might ask the thoughtful questions that make you see life differently. Someone else might never remember your birthday, but if your car broke down at midnight, they'd be there before you finished the phone call. Which one is a better friend? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe they're simply loving you in different ways, or that's all they can give. So perhaps the question isn't, does this person tick every box? Maybe it's, what gift does this friendship bring? And what gift do I bring to them? Because friendship isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about two imperfect people choosing goodwill toward each other, respecting each other's differences, showing up when they can, and building trust over time. Maybe that's the common thread. Not identical personalities, not identical expectations, not identical amounts of time, but a genuine desire for each other's good. I'd love to know what you think. What does the word friend mean to you? Please let me know in the comments below. And there's one more thing I've been thinking about. When we understand friendship better, I wonder whether modern life is making friendship harder. Has technology changed the way we relate to one another? Does constantly seeing what everyone else is doing make us compare more, feel left out more, expect instant replies, or even misunderstand each other more? Next week, I'd like to explore whether technology is quietly changing our friendships in ways we may not even realize. I think it's a conversation worth having. So if you'd like to join me, I'd love to see you then.